Yeah.
Hello, good morning. Good morning to everyone. First of all, I would like to thank the initiative of EFL Talks for joining this together for Puerto Rico. As a team, we can all find that it's worth it when we all stick together and work for one common goals. With this said, I would like to head to my title, which is Exploring New Roles as a Leader through EFL. One of the things that I found interesting is that when we do come together and when we do keep progress working, and it helps build success. And this is something that it's important for us to keep in mind when we decide to do these kind of activities just to help and back each other up. Uh, First, I'd like to start with what is a leader and how are EFL teachers actually considered leaders? There are many definitions when it comes to what is a leader, and one of them says that it's a social kind of common ground to motivate others to do better and to reach success. So then that leads me to the question, what is success? And success for me is as long as you're doing the best that you can to strive and to help others also around you and help yourself, it's already a successful, and that's what we work for as EFL teachers. So how are EFL teachers considered leaders? They're considered leaders in many ways because day by day, we're always pushing students to strive for their best. We're always, those who work in administrative positions are always pushing their teachers or their coordinators to strive for the best. So then I want to fall back a little bit on how do we make ourselves better and how do we lead ourselves into success as well, which is part of the overall gamma that I would like to talk to you guys about. How to first think about ourselves as leaders and help lead ourselves, our lives into what we call a model for the rest, and how to model our students and the rest of our teachers also on the same line. Here, I would like to talk about three things. Our role as a teacher. Sometimes we take our role as a way of that we're always supposed to give and never to receive something. But as English teachers, we're supposed to put ourselves also as in the participant's point of view, as learners, lifelong learners, as Mary says. So there are three things that I would like to take into consideration. One is self-efficacy, social responsibility, and the knowledge of culture, which is an excellent idea that many of my prior colleagues in the presentations I've been looking at have been actually touching. And I think it's very important to understand where we're coming from. How do we identify ourselves to our own culture before we can actually teach it to others? And learning English as a second language or English as a foreign language, in my case here in the Dominican Republic, it's very important to keep our grounds rooted and embedded within our own culture and also learn the language at the same time. So I would like to start with self-efficacy. And here I have a graph, and I want to explain a little bit. And self-efficacy is a combination of many factors. In fact, one of Same, I think her name was, uh, she said something about the Kolb cycle, which here is past experiences, performance experience, and past experience. We also have the need to persuade others, the need to model emotional sense of being, and to also model not only the cognitive factor, but how do we show empathy? How do we connect to society? Um, Being self-efficient, being able to consider ourselves as a leader for our own lives before considering for others is just as important as modeling. Here's why. With self-efficacy, it helps us remain calm with challenging situation and tasks. As long as you know who you are as a person, how you're leading your team, how you're leading your students, how you're leading your teachers, and you're able to remain calm at all times because you're faced with the challenges. You know what's going on and what they're thinking about. The willingness to experiment new ideas. Part of being a leader is also not following the same um, train, is also inventing new things, being a little bit courageous to kind of step outside of the box and create. new communities, engage with other cultures. Also, how one of my students would say, it's taking the leap and feeling comfortable with oneself before I can connect to others. And also having higher expectations for future. And when I say higher expectations is that we aim to teach students how to speak a language. We aim to teach them how to apply a language for job purposes, for study purposes, but we don't aim to teach them how to learn a language to connect with other cultures and to kind of build our society. As you've seen lately in the news and in many countries, I don't know about other countries, but here in Dominican Republic, there is a huge realm of issues popping up. Delinquency, crimes, there are many things. And you start thinking about this in relation to what we teach. And I believe that if, as teachers, we take just a little bit of a moment to kind of sit them through and talk to them, making sure that they're being heard, give them some tools aside from the language, but how to use that language in order to create more bondness. We can actually create that self-efficacy in each individual and become stronger bonds and have stronger bonds in the future. Um, our social responsibility as leaders, for me, are 5 unique and special things that it needs to have. So the first question comes to all of you is, what comes to your mind when you think about social responsibility? And how can you take a toll as a leader within that same realm? So for me, when I think about being an EFL teacher in the Dominican Republic, when I think about guiding my students, there are 5 main components and elements that I think are extremely important. One of them is teaching empathy before teaching any of the cognitive skills that we need to teach. Why empathy? If I'm able to build a healthy rapport with my students, if my students are able to help to build a healthy rapport with each other and connect and actually be sensible to what other are going through, whether it is in the learning aspects, whether it is in the personal aspects, it helps us connect and it helps learning even faster. It has also the balance of power. And when I'm talking about the balance of power, is that as teachers, sometimes we talk about, well, I'm the teacher, this is my classroom, we do as we say. And it shouldn't be that way. Um, there should be some kind of a negotiation in the classroom between the teacher, the students. And being a leader doesn't mean always taking charge. Being a leader also means stepping back and letting the other one take charge for themselves. When it comes to the balance of power, I believe that we should involve students in decision making in the classroom. Have them build up some of the rules, have them actually give their opinions in regards to the content and what is it to be taught and how it should be taught in the classroom, and create that consensus between both teacher and student in order for the class to kind of just flow. Building tolerance. If you've noticed, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, one of the major issues that we're having in our society is that everyone is getting angry with each other on a rapid speed. No one's taking the time to listen to another before we jump to conclusions. So building tolerance among ourselves first, and knowing that everything is a step-by-step process, learning is a step-by-step process. Becoming a great teacher is such an understatement because there's not a great teacher, there's great minds. We work towards getting better every day. We're never going to reach that top peak and say, well, I just finished learning how to become a great teacher. We also had to value diversity. It's funny to say, but here in Dominican Republic, we have Haiti as our neighbor. And personally, I'm very proud to have another culture next to my island and that we can kind of share. And I value how their culture brings in a lot of richness to our culture because we all come from the same place. In our classrooms as leaders, excuse me, we need to value diversity in the sense that it doesn't matter their culture background. It doesn't matter how, if they have English as a base, if they don't have English as a base. Um, what do they like to eat? What do they like to study? What do they like to do? Is just many. I mean, there are many factors. When we value diversity, we need to take into account that we're looking at the student as a person, not at the student as an empty vessel for us to deposit information in. And one of my favorite, and this I learned from Mary, it's building community. And it's important to build community in the class before we start. And it should become a routine, an everyday process. For the simple fact is that when we build a community, stronger bonds are met, and that increases social responsibility, not only for us as teachers with the students, but as soon as the students leave our classrooms, they're also kind of encouraged to continue on building a community with others that they meet. So one good act from the teacher's point of view as a leader in the classroom can lead to 25, 30 students heading out to do the same thing outside of the class. So once again, empathy, diversity, balance of power, building tolerance, and building community. And I love the fact I'm reaching here the part of knowledge of culture. And I love this because I've heard it in the previous presentations that we have heard. And within knowledge of culture, and I absolutely love this, there are 3 components that I think are absolutely necessary. One of them is the negotiation of self. And with this one, I'm very keen towards talking about this because is our identity, becoming aware of who we are, where we came from, how can our roots kind of enrich second language acquisition. And before choosing to be a native speaker, if you're not a non-native, if you're a non-native speaker, why not embrace the non-native speaker attribute, become a leader in your language, in your culture, and teach a second language, but keeping your roots intact, which is very important. A second component to knowledge of culture for me would be content integration. And with this, students can play a huge role in it. Use the content from the books, if you have books, from their daily experience, from their lives, and a variety of other cultures of what's going on in the world to bring into the lesson. Many of us are kind of secluded towards the book as the only resource. But why not bring in some social aspects from the world, things that are happening, and have students kind of integrate and look for information, other culture, and not only leave it there, I'm going to connect it to the critical pedagogy. Getting a problem in another culture and having the students kind of compare it to theirs, reflect on it, and trying to find a solving pattern. So thank you very much. This was my presentation. Short, I wish I could expand a little bit more, but remember that teachers are superheroes disguised as leaders.